Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the lush, complex world of a truly iconic story. One that begins not with a bang, but with a vivid, swirling introduction to a very particular kind of Southern life, just on the brink of profound change.
We're venturing into the opening chapters of Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind.
That's it. Our mission: to extract the core insights about its unforgettable characters, the rich tapestry of its setting, and, the societal currents bubbling just beneath the surface in April of 1861.
Right. You've shared the foundational text, and we're here to guide you through its most captivating and revealing details.
Prepare for a journey into a world of bonnets, balls, and burgeoning war talk.
Definitely. We'll meet a spirited young woman, her charming but often baffling family, and a society that clings to its traditions even as the drums of conflict begin to beat louder and louder.
We'll explore the fascinating clash between outward appearances and inner desires, and how a whole way of life is about to face its ultimate shattering test.
Yeah, its ultimate test.
So let's unpack this, and we begin, of course, with Scarlett O'Hara herself.
Where else could you start?
Exactly. A character described immediately as not beautiful, yet undeniably magnetic. This initial impression sets a truly fascinating paradox for the reader, doesn't it? Hinting at a complexity beneath the surface.
It absolutely does. The description of her physical peculiarities is a masterclass in character introduction. Mitchell paints a vivid picture of a unique blend of features.
Yeah.
The delicate, almost aristocratic elements from her French mother, mixed with the heavier, more florid ones from her Irish father.
Right.
The text explicitly points to her pale green eyes without a touch of hazel, starred with bristly black lashes and slightly tilted at the ends, and those thick black brows slanted upward, cutting a startling oblique line in her magnolia white skin.
It's a striking image, almost exotic, really, for her time.
Very.
And that detail about magnolia white skin, it isn't just a throwaway line, is it?
Oh, not at all. It's profoundly significant. The narrative emphasizes how this skin tone was so prized by Southern women and so carefully guarded with bonnets, veils, and mittens against hot Georgia suns.
This seemingly small detail is a powerful shorthand for the entire socioeconomic edifice of the Old South.
Exactly.
It's not merely a beauty standard, it's a visible marker of status, a direct testament to the leisure afforded by the brutal labor of enslaved people.
Right, because for these women, a tan signaled manual work, a mark of the lower classes.
Fundamentally at odds with the prized image of the delicate, leisured Southern belle.
Precisely. It immediately immerses you in a world where appearance dictates worth, and worth is completely intertwined with an exploitative system.
And then there's her infamous 17-inch waist.
Yes. Touted as the smallest in 3 counties.
But the narrative notes how her tightly fitting mask showed breasts well matured for her 16 years.
But this undeniable physical maturity is immediately contrasted with the modesty of her spreading skirts and the demureness of hair netted smoothly into a chignon.
Along with the quietness of small white hands folded in her lap.
Right, so this tension between her outward presentation, the demure Southern belle rigidly adhering to expectations, and her more audacious, perhaps even untamed inner self is established right away.
It's a subtle but powerful hint at an internal struggle, isn't it? A burgeoning rebellion against the very conventions she uses to her advantage.
Absolutely.
That internal struggle is further cemented by her mindset and chosen amusements. She clearly has a casual, almost dismissive attitude towards academics.
Oh yeah. The text explicitly states she had not willingly opened a book since leaving the Fayetteville Female Academy the year before.
Which immediately sets her apart from, say, Ashley Wilkes.
Totally. It highlights her priorities, which are decidedly not intellectual pursuits, and shows you a character who values practical application and immediate gratification over abstract knowledge.
Her fascination with flirtation, on the other hand, is undeniably her true intellectual arena.
That's a great way to put it. We see her amusement at the Tarleton twins' expulsion from the University of Georgia, their 4th university in 2 years, no less.
Right. And how skilled she is at maneuvering them away from the boring subject of war back to their immediate situation, and more importantly, back to her.
Yeah, this isn't just girlish charm, it's a strategic mind at work. It vividly reveals where her interests truly lie. Charming men, orchestrating social dynamics, asserting her influence.
Rather than engaging with weighty matters of the day.
Exactly. For Scarlett, social manipulation is her form of higher education.
And that flirtatious nature, that drive for male attention, it's deeply intertwined with her singular, all-consuming obsession, Ashley Wilkes.
The big one.
The news of his engagement to Melanie Hamilton hits her with the force of a thunderclap, a truly devastating, world-shattering blow.
It's the first real crack in her perfectly constructed, self-centered universe.
And what's particularly fascinating is how this intense fever of love for Ashley only began 2 years prior, after his grand tour of Europe.
Right. Before that, she had never given him a thought.
Which suggests her feelings are perhaps less about a deep, innate connection or understanding of Ashley as a person.
And more about the chase, right? The perception of him as an unobtainable prize or a symbol of something she desires but doesn't fully grasp.
It's love as an acquisition, not a partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
And what truly captivates Scarlett about Ashley is particularly telling, precisely because it's so alien to her own nature.
It's described as his quality of reserve, his aloofness, and his interest in books and music, and his fondness for writing poetry, things that are utterly foreign to her.
The idea of him as a mystery, a door that had neither lock nor key, paradoxically made her love him more.
Which speaks to her attraction to what she doesn't possess, to something she can't easily conquer or understand, making him the ultimate challenge rather than a true companion.
Her naivete and inherent spoilage are just laid bare here.
Absolutely. She had never doubted he would propose, being too young and too spoiled ever to have known defeat.
This isn't just about a broken heart, it's a fundamental reckoning for her privileged worldview, a shattering of the illusion that her desires are paramount and always obtainable.
And that sets the stage beautifully for her profound shock and indignation, almost as if the universe had personally betrayed her when his engagement to Melanie is announced.
Her immediate response isn't tears or despair, though. It's a chillingly pragmatic, almost cold, premeditated plan.
Oh, classic Scarlett.
Pure Scarlett. She decides she will be her gayest, most spirited self. She will flirt with every man there, specifically to make Ashley yearn for her. And then eventually she would modestly and sweetly admit her preference, all in a ladylike way.
This meticulous, almost theatrical approach showcases her innate strategic mind, like a proto-feminist cunning operating within the strictures of her era.
But it also exposes the shallowness of her emotional engagement, doesn't it? Reducing complex feelings to a social game she believes she can always win.
It sounds like she had this entire charade mapped out. But even for someone so determined and calculating, was there like a flicker of vulnerability, a struggle with having to be unnatural all the time?
Absolutely. Even within that strategic framework, there's a powerful internal conflict. She resents everlastingly being unnatural and acting like a bird, this forced delicacy, this constant performance. She contrasts it sharply with her observation of Yankee girls who seem to have right good sense and can express themselves more freely, maybe even pursue men more openly.
Interesting. So she sees an alternative.
Yeah, and she debates whether to truly use these premeditated feminine tricks, chafing under the very societal rules she tries so hard to master. It's a moment of surprising honesty, showing she hungers for authenticity even as she is trapped by convention.
Okay, so shifting our focus now from Scarlett to her cherished home, Tara, and its founder, her father, Gerald O'Hara. This provides crucial context, Ro.
Crucial for her character and the world she inhabits. The land itself is described with such evocative detail. It's a savagely red land, blood-colored after rains, brick dust and droughts, and notably, the best cotton land in the world.
That imagery isn't just geological description. It immediately sets a tone of both stark beauty and underlying harshness.
That phrase, savagely red land, is incredibly powerful, and it's truly described as a land of contrasts, with brightest sun glare and densest shade.
Which reflects, perhaps, the inherent complexities and contradictions of the society itself, its outward beauty and opulence masking profound inequalities and looming conflict.
It's a land that promises much, but extracts a heavy price.
And at the very heart of this land, cotton was the heartbeat of the section. This isn't merely an economic fact, it's the very pulse of their existence, driving everything from social hierarchies to daily conversations, shaping identities and destinies.
And this immense wealth derived from cotton, however, bred an equally immense arrogance, a profound self-assurance that their way of life was not only superior, but eternal.
Yeah, fostering a certainty of the morrow that would soon be shattered by the looming conflict. Mitchell masterfully uses this economic backbone to explain the psychology and, well, the fatal confidence of the Southern elite.
And what a character Gerald O'Hara is.
Yeah.
Despite being little more than 5 feet tall, he's described with a thick-set torso, sturdy legs, and a swaggering small boy's stance.
His face is as Irish a face as could be found. Round, high-colored, short-nosed, wide-mouthed, and belligerent, with an unworried youthfulness.
He immediately defies typical expectations for a man of his stature, signaling that his power comes from his personality and ambition, not just his physical presence.
He's explicitly called the bantam cock of the barnyard, and the analogy perfectly captures his essence.
It does.
It explains how he commands respect and dominates any room despite his small size, contrasting sharply with the typical ridiculous small person. His presence is more about his indomitable spirit, his bluster, and his sheer force of will.
He's a small man who casts a very large shadow. His journey from tenant to planter is central to the very American dream narrative, but here it's infused with a uniquely Southern character.
Right. Stemming from his Irish background, he harbored a deep hunger to have his own acres stretching green before his eyes.
For the Irish, land ownership was synonymous with freedom and identity, often denied to them back home.
And transplanted to Georgia, this hunger becomes amplified, driving his ruthless singleness of purpose.
Which tragically culminates in the acquisition of slaves to work those coveted acres, revealing the stark moral compromise at the heart of the Southern planter class's rise.
And that ambition manifests directly in the acquisition of Tara. The text tells us he borrowed from his unenthusiastic brothers and mortgaged land to buy slaves, then began the plantation, transforming a simple overseer's house into the grand home we know.
This act of building from scratch underscores his self-made man status within the Southern planter class, a testament to sheer willpower.
And a reflection of the economic engine that drove his success.
But for all his bluster, Gerald often has a loud bark and no bite.
Yeah, that's a great line. We learn that beneath his choleric exterior, he actually possesses the tenderest of hearts.
He has a profound horror of this weakness being discovered, fearing it would undermine his authority.
It's quite humorous how the entire household, in a tacit and kindly conspiracy, allows him to believe his word was law.
When, in fact, only one voice was obeyed on the plantation, the soft voice of his wife, Ellen.
Which illustrates the complex, often hidden power dynamics at play within the O'Hara family.
This dynamic extends to his relationships with neighbors, which further reveal the intricate social hierarchy and underlying tensions.
He's on excellent terms with almost everyone, save for the McIntoshes, described pointedly as Scotch, Irish, and Orange men, and subject to abolitionist rumors.
A clear sign of their perceived outsider status.
Definitely. Then there are the Slatterys, the poor white family, characterized as shiftless and whining, whom he desperately wants off his land.
These relationships highlight the nuanced social strata, not just between black and white, but also within the white community itself, where economic standing and perceived moral fiber dictated social acceptance.
Right.
And his practical jokes, like telling Pork he sold Dilsey, they're a curious and often uncomfortable aspect of his character.
They are. While seemingly harmless pranks to him, they underscore his often simplistic view of others' emotions and his tendency to see people as extensions of his whims.
It speaks to a certain immaturity despite his position of power and a blindness to the emotional impact of his actions.
Okay, so next we turn to Ellen O'Hara, the steadfast matriarch.
Truly a miracle in Scarlett's eyes. Scarlett sees her mother as breathtaking, a miracle who awed her and charmed and soothed her.
Which is a stark contrast to how Scarlett views almost everyone else. It highlights Ellen's profound and unique impact on her often rebellious daughter.
Ellen represents an ideal Scarlett can never quite attain but perpetually admires.
And Ellen's elegance and grace are beautifully rendered. She's described as a tall woman possessing quiet grace, with a creamy-skinned, rounded and slender neck, and luxuriant hair.
Her French heritage is evident in her slanting dark eyes and black hair. She embodies an austere placidity and maintains perfect personal appointments, no matter the hour or the task.
She's the epitome of the ideal Southern lady. Composed, refined, seemingly untouched by the daily grind she nonetheless tirelessly manages.
Her decision to marry Gerald, a loud man, so different from her refined background, remains a mystery to all, doesn't it? Adds a layer of poignant depth.
It does. The narrative tells us she sobbed till the dawn like a broken-hearted child and rose up in the morning a woman with her mind made up.
That hint of a past heartbreak or an unresolved emotion preceding her marriage explains the deep well of resilience and quiet sorrow she draws upon.
And perhaps her extraordinary capacity for stoicism and duty.
And what a huge adaptation it must have been for her, moving from Savannah, described as a gently mannered city by the sea, to the rugged section held by a hardy people of North Georgia.
The stark contrast between the quiet jungle beauty of the coast and the vigor and energy of the upcountry is a powerful setting detail that mirrors Ellen's own transition.
She respected them and learned to admire the frankness and forthrightness of these people finding value in their pragmatism.
Even if she never would or could quite become one of them, always retaining her delicate Savannah sensibilities and quiet dignity.
As the mistress of Tara, her impact is immediate and profound. Despite being only 15 when she married Gerald, she brought order, dignity, and grace to his rough-hewn household,
transforming it into a functioning and respectable plantation home. The text notes she was responsible for managing households that numbered 100 people or more, white and black.
A truly immense undertaking for such a young woman, highlighting her innate capability and strength.
And her relentless work ethic is truly staggering.
It really is.
The text describes her as chained to supervision of cooking, nursing, sewing, and laundering, always with needlework in her hands, and deeply involved in the bookkeeping of the plantation.
These dawn-till-midnight activities reveal the hidden, often unacknowledged labor of Southern mistresses, far from the leisurely image often portrayed.
It shatters the illusion of the delicate, idle lady, showing the immense responsibility and physical toll required to maintain such an establishment.
This profound work ethic is tied to the broader burdens of womanhood in that era, especially among the elite.
Definitely. She was reared in a tradition of great ladies, which taught her how to carry her burden and still retain her charm.
Which included the expectation that women ignore men's lapses of speech, never criticize, and even put drunkards to bed without bitter words.
Exemplifying the profound societal pressure on women to maintain composure, grace, and an illusion of domestic perfection, regardless of the challenging circumstances they face.
As a mother, her resilience is further highlighted by her endurance of the deaths of 3 baby sons,
each tragically named Scarlett O'Hara Jr.
Yet her back unbowed. This speaks volumes about her inner strength and almost superhuman capacity for stoicism in the face of immense personal loss.
She's the anchor of the family, enduring all without public complaint.
Her efforts to raise her 3 daughters as great ladies are also a central theme, particularly with Scarlett.
She tries to teach Scarlett to be gentle, sedate, and proper, not interrupt gentlemen, and to eat like a bird, each a rigid rule of decorum.
Her distress over Scarlett's often unladylike conduct and her constant concerns for her emotional state reveal the unending struggle Ellen faces in shaping her spirited daughter to fit these restrictive societal molds.
A struggle she ultimately knows she is losing.
And her compassion is boundless, extending far beyond the confines of her own class. Her immediate response to illness at the Slattery house, nursing Emmy's dying baby.
Despite it being a white trash family and infringing on her own supper hour,
it showcases her deep empathy and profound sense of Christian duty. Mammy's commentary on Ellen's ceaseless nursing further emphasizes this saint-like quality,
underscoring Ellen's selflessness as a rare and exceptional virtue, even among those who knew her intimately.
Speaking of Mammy, she is truly the unshakable moral compass of Tara.
A formidable presence in the household. Her physical description alone is powerful. A huge old woman with the small, shrewd eyes of an elephant, described as shining black, pure African.
His immediately conveys her ancient wisdom, strength, and unwavering gaze.
Her unwavering devotion to the O'Haras is absolute, described as extending to her last drop of blood. She is Ellen's mainstay.
Indispensable not only to the smooth running of the household, but also to the emotional and moral well-being of the family.
She is the true bedrock upon which the entire O'Hara domestic structure rests.
Yet she's also a stern disciplinarian, famously the despair of her 3 daughters, the terror of the other house servants.
Right. She chastened those she loved, especially Scarlett, practically continuously.
This tough love isn't arbitrary. It's born from a deep sense of responsibility and an almost maternal care for her charges, ensuring they adhere to the highest standards of conduct,
regardless of their protestations.
And her code of conduct and sense of pride are described as high as or higher than those of her owners.
Having been raised in the bedroom of Solange Robillard, Ellen's dainty, cold, high-nosed French mother.
This aristocratic upbringing imbues Mammy with a strict adherence to decorum, manners, and moral rectitude that she rigidly applies to Scarlett, sometimes even more stringently than Ellen herself,
believing it is her duty to mold Scarlett into a proper lady.
This is best exemplified by her ironclad rule of deportment, particularly her insistence that Scarlett eat like a bird and not gobble like a hog.
Her deep indignation at Scarlett's defiant heresy and wanting to eat what she pleases underscores the cultural expectations of feminine delicacy and the immense weight Mammy places on upholding them.
It's not just about table manners. It's about maintaining a fragile image of femininity that Mammy believes is crucial for Scarlett's future.
What's truly fascinating here is her bland guile. She's incredibly clever in manipulating Scarlett, for instance, by subtly mentioning Melanie's bird-like eating habits.
This isn't brute force, it's a shrewd psychological tactic. Mammy knows Scarlett's competitive nature and her obsession with Ashley.
And she expertly leverages these vulnerabilities. Her manipulation highlights Mammy's deep understanding of Scarlett's character flaws.
And it also underscores the complex power dynamics between them. Mammy, though enslaved, holds significant moral and psychological authority over Scarlett,
Often guiding her with a deceptive gentleness.
and her views on marriage are remarkably blunt and practical, a refreshing counterpoint to the romanticized notions prevalent in society.
Oh yeah. She explicitly assesses that Yankee gals get married for money and, more pointedly, that men don't like women with too much sense.
She famously states, "It don't make a gentleman feel like my hyena lady if he suspicions she got most sense than he has."
Which reveals a deeply pragmatic, almost cynical understanding of gender dynamics in her world, even as she herself enforces restrictive female behaviors.
She recognizes the inherent double standards, but pragmatically advises how to navigate them for survival and success.
Okay, so now let's shift our focus to the broader context, the impending conflict.
Right. The pre-war atmosphere is palpable, immediately setting the stage for profound societal change. We're told the shelling of Fort Sumter happened just day before yesterday, in April 1861, and its impact is already directly shaping the characters' discussions, turning every social gathering into a forum for war talk.
The men's zeal for war is almost childlike in its enthusiasm, fueled by bravado and ignorance.
We hear cries of, "Why, one Southerner can lick 20 Yankees," and confident predictions that they'll lick them in a month.
All punctuated by shouts of, "States' rights by God!" This isn't merely a political slogan. For them, it's a deeply felt rallying cry, a justification for their way of life, and a belief in their inherent superiority.
It's a romanticized, almost arrogant view of the coming conflict, completely detached from the brutal realities of warfare.
And in stark contrast to this male enthusiasm, this martial fervor that consumes the men, we have Scarlett's acute boredom.
Right. Boredom with the words war and secession. She finds them utterly tiresome, wishing they would talk about anything else.
Which again highlights her self-centered nature and her disinterest in anything that doesn't directly impact her personal desires. A profound detachment from the momentous historical events unfolding.
The formation of the troop provides a concrete example of this collective fervor, but also hints at its naive underpinnings.
Yeah, it's a local militia organized the very day that Georgia seceded, made up of young men with little to no military experience who were practically whistling for war.
They envision grand battles and swift victories, utterly unprepared for the grim realities of prolonged conflict.
The naming of the troop becomes a point of intense local pride and even humor. We hear a multitude of suggestions.
The Clayton Wildcats, Fire Eaters,
North Georgia Hussars, Zouaves, and my favorite, the Blood and Thunderers.
It's a theatrical display of burgeoning martial identity, but also a glimpse into the regional quirks and rivalries that shape these local units.
Each name reflects a blend of local pride, perceived ferocity, and dramatic flair, embodying their romanticized view of military glory.
The challenges they face are quite telling, though, and subtly foreshadow the South's broader struggle.
There's the delicate question of money for horses, as most small farmers only use mules, a clear sign of the economic disparity between the industrial North and the agrarian South.
However, access to firearms wasn't an issue, with most Southerners born with guns in their hands.
This disparity, an abundance of eager armed men but a lack of industrial infrastructure, hints at the practical difficulties that would soon emerge in the war, painting a more realistic picture beneath the bravado.
And the drills themselves sound less like military precision and more like social gatherings.
Right, and a showcase for youthful exuberance. They routinely ended in saloons and led to fights.
With tragic results like Stuart Tarleton shooting Cade Calvert and Tony Fontaine shooting Brent.
These incidents underscore the volatile mix of inexperience, hot tempers, easy access to alcohol, and a culture that romanticized violence and honor.
It's a stark premonition of the uncontrolled chaos that war would truly unleash.
Amidst this fervent pro-war sentiment, the narrative introduces crucial voices of dissent and realism.
Offering a stark counterpoint to the prevailing romanticism, Mr. McCrae, a veteran of past wars, provides a sobering, unvarnished account.
Yeah, describing war not as glory, but as going hungry and getting the measles and pneumonia from sleeping in the wet, and grimly detailing its effect on a man's bowels.
This gritty, visceral description is a stark contrast to the idealized, sanitized views held by the younger men, a crucial dose of reality.
And then, The unforgettable arrival of Rhett Butler.
Right.
His entrance is marked by a flat drawl that bespoke his Charleston birth, and he immediately carries an air of contempt for the prevailing sentiment, acting as an intellectual and moral provocateur.
He's an outsider, an unconventional figure who dares to challenge the accepted wisdom and nationalistic fervor of the crowd.
His provocative realism is chilling in its accuracy. He offers a precise and brutal analysis of the North's strengths.
Pointing to their thousands of immigrants who'd fight for food, their factories, the foundries, the shipyards, the iron and coal mines, all the industrial might the South conspicuously lacks.
He articulates, with a detached, almost academic precision, the vast, insurmountable logistical and economic disadvantages of the Confederacy, a truth no one else dares to speak.
And he doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the Southern weakness, stripping away all pretense. His blunt assessment is, all we have is cotton and slaves and arrogance.
And his immediate, shocking prediction, they'd lick us in a month.
It's a moment of profound truth-telling that cuts through the bravado and denial, laying bare the foundation of Southern society and its inherent fragility.
This statement is so audacious precisely because it challenges the very identity of the men in the room.
The reaction to his words is immediate and palpable. There's a tense moment, followed by ominous murmuring from the crowd, a silent threat of violence.
Scarlett's internal reaction is particularly telling, isn't it? Something in her practical mind prompted the thought that what this man said was right, and it sounded like common sense.
Yet, despite recognizing the truth of his words, she immediately deems him no gentleman for saying such things at a party.
Which reveals her own complex internal conflict, her practical intelligence at odds with her ingrained social conditioning.
And his complete lack of deference is striking. He's utterly unbothered by his reputation, refusing to apologize or retract his statements.
And walks away with discomforting laughter, leaving the men bewildered and angry, their fragile illusions punctured.
Rhett Butler immediately establishes himself as a character who sees things clearly, speaks uncomfortable truths regardless of social consequences, and holds a cynical yet deeply perceptive view of the world.
Setting him apart from everyone else.
The 12 Oaks barbecue serves as the central social gathering that provides the lavish backdrop for many of these interactions.
Right. John Wilkes's boundless hospitality is painted vividly with long, trestled picnic tables set under the thickest shade, chairs, hassocks, and cushions scattered about.
And long pits where the meat's cooked, emitting savory aromas. It paints a picture of Southern opulence and leisure, a world that seems eternal, idyllic.
But is tragically on the brink of collapse, its grandeur fueled by the very system soon to be challenged.
And the social rituals are strictly observed and deeply ingrained. We see the clear separation of bright-eyed girls from married women,
who are engaged in endless genealogical and obstetrical discussions.
This highlights the rigid social structures and the narrow prescribed roles placed on women in that society, even during leisure. The girls are for display and flirtation.
The married women for the serious business of family lineage and reproduction.
Scarlett's strategy at the barbecue is typical of her calculated approach. She deliberately chooses to sit apart, a seemingly innocent act,
but one designed to gather as many men as possible around her, demonstrating her tactical mind and her relentless pursuit of attention and admiration.
Every move is a calculated chess move.
This leads us naturally to her key relationships, starting with Scarlett and Charles Hamilton.
Oh, Charles. Their marriage is an impulsive, fateful decision driven entirely by Scarlett's wounded pride and a desperate, almost vindictive desire to hurt Ashley, Melanie, and the Tarleton sisters.
Her exact thought, revealed in the narration, she'd make them sorry. It's a marriage born of spite, not love.
Charles himself is portrayed as a rather pathetic figure, isn't he? Later remembered by Scarlett only by his dying calf look.
And his whole clean, simple heart in his eyes, which tells us far more about Scarlett's utter lack of genuine affection or even interest in him than it does about Charles himself.
He is merely a pawn in her game of revenge, easily dismissible once he's served his purpose.
Their proposal scene is quite revealing in its stark contrast. Charles stammeringly confesses his feelings and eagerness for war, brimming with a naive excitement.
To which Scarlett flippantly responds that she'd cry into her pillow every night.
And her quick, almost contemptuous no to a double wedding, rejecting the very idea of sharing her spotlight,
underscores her singular focus on her own desires and vanity, even in such a momentous decision as marriage.
Then there's the library scene, where Scarlett confronts Ashley and is famously overheard by Rhett Butler.
A pivotal, explosive moment that reverberates throughout the entire narrative.
Definitely. Rhett is present on the sofa, seemingly unnoticed, as Scarlett, in a raw emotional outburst, pours out her passionate, heartbroken declaration of love to Ashley.
revealing her deepest vulnerability and desperate longing.
Rhett's reaction is shocking, unconventional, and utterly unforgettable. He tells her bluntly, "And you, miss, are no lady."
But then immediately follows it with calling her a girl of rare spirit, very admirable spirit, praising her tempestuous nature and passion for living.
This is not an insult, but a recognition. He sees through her societal artifice to her true fiery essence, appreciating the raw power within her that others cannot or will not acknowledge.
He also expresses clear contempt for Ashley, seeing him as weak and undeserving of such a vibrant spirit.
Scarlett's reaction to Rhett's audacity is a complex, contradictory mix. She feels intense rage, wishing she could kill him.
For his effrontery, for seeing her so clearly and daring to voice it.
But paradoxically, she also experiences a feeling of respect for him, particularly for his refusal to marry a fool, for his uncompromising realism.
This is a crucial turning point, a moment where she recognizes a kindred spirit, someone who doesn't play by the same rules.
Foreshadowing the complicated, tumultuous, and deeply understanding relationship that will develop between them. The first time someone truly sees her, even if she despises him for it.
We also see Scarlett's long-standing manipulative relationship with the Tarleton twins.
Right. They shift from childhood playmates to eager suitors, continually amazed at her transformation into a grown-up young lady.
Their blind devotion to her is painfully evident in how she makes them beg and plead for her attention and favors, openly enjoying their torment.
Their loyalty to her is so strong that they readily overlook India Wilkes, who had been courting Stuart, showcasing Scarlett's power over men and her casual cruelty.
Scarlett's rivalry with India Wilkes is subtly portrayed but significant. She feels a brief twinge of conscience when she realizes India truly loved Stuart.
And was hurt by Scarlett's machinations.
But this fleeting moment of empathy is quickly dismissed with the chilling rationalization that it wasn't her fault if other girls couldn't keep their men.
Which highlights Scarlett's profoundly self-serving nature and her capacity to disregard others' feelings when it suits her own desires, laying bare a core aspect of her character.
And then there's the truly delightful, if slightly scandalous, discussion of the Wilkes family's queerness.
Yes. Mrs. Tarleton openly discusses their troubling tendency for intermarrying, their pop-eyed children, and their unusual interests in music and books and scenery.
Interests seen as too intellectual and unmanly for Southern gentlemen.
Gerald quickly tries to divert this conversation from Ellen's ears, indicating the delicate nature of such topics and the intense societal scrutiny of families with perceived peculiar traits.
Especially those that hinted at mental or physical infirmity.
The aftermath of the party rapidly transitions to Scarlett's early widowhood, a sequence of events that unfolds with dizzying speed.
Underscoring the brutal realities of wartime and the fragility of life. Within 2 weeks, Scarlett had become a wife, and within 2 months or more, she was a widow.
That swiftness emphasizes how little control she truly had over her life, swept up by external forces.
She is released from the bonds she had assumed with so much haste and so little thought, a marriage born purely of spite.
But the freedom she perhaps longed for is quickly replaced by a new, far more restrictive kind of confinement. She is never again to know the careless freedom of her unmarried days.
Her impulsive decision to marry Charles, made on a whim, has immediate and devastatingly lasting consequences, trapping her in a social prison.
Her boredom consequently becomes intense and ever-present.
The county's emptied of all of the interesting young men who have gone to war, leaving only older men, the cripples and the women, who spend their time knitting and sewing.
This stark reality of wartime society is a complete inversion of her previous lively social life, stripping away all the amusements and attention that fed her vanity.
It highlights the profound limitations placed on women during this era, whose social lives were dictated by the presence of eligible men.
And the widow strictures are particularly stifling, enforced by Ellen's unwavering adherence to social codes.
Ellen imposes firm rules for a widow's conduct. It must be twice as circumspect as that of a matron, and she must wear hideous black clothes without even a touch of braid.
Scarlett's bitter thought, widows might as well be dead, perfectly encapsulates her misery and the profound social isolation of her new status, a living death dictated by societal expectations.
Her new role as a mother is also telling in its lack of genuine affection.
Yeah, she has minimal interest in her son, Wade Hampton Hamilton, whom she sometimes even forgot he was actually hers.
The idea of him as a posthumous token of her love for Charles is merely a societal narrative she allows to persist, a convenient fiction.
Rather than a reflection of genuine maternal affection, Her focus remains squarely on herself and her own desires.
Despite her misery and new constraints, her obsession with Ashley continues, a dark cloud over her new life.
She feels compelled to visit 12 Oaks to hear about him and read his letters from Virginia, even though they hurt her deeply.
This almost masochistic tendency, this need to inflict pain upon herself through the object of her unrequited desire, reveals the depth of her fixation.
And her inability to move past this idealized, unattainable love, even when it causes her intense suffering.
Her attempts to escape her boredom and grief through visiting relatives prove utterly fruitless, revealing the pervasive limitations of her world.
Right, first her Savannah relatives, who are old and content to sit quietly and talk of a past in which Scarlett has no interest, offer absolutely no solace or amusement.
Their world is as stagnant and suffocating as her own.
Her experience in Charleston with Ellen's sisters, Pauline and Eulalie, is even worse. A profound culture shock.
She finds Charleston terrible, isolated, a literal prison. The creeps she gets from the live oaks with their waving curtains of gray moss remind her of Gerald's ghost stories.
Adding to her sense of unease, there's nothing to do but knit all day and listen to dull readings at night, a stark contrast to the lively social world she craves.
She deeply dislikes the people who call, with their airs and their traditions and their emphasis on family.
Knowing full well they view her as a child of a mesalliance, a product of an unsuitable match between her refined mother and crude father.
The drawling, flat voices of the Low Country seem affected to her, irritating her to the point of screaming internally.
This profound discomfort highlights how deeply rooted her identity is in the wilder, freer, less constrained spirit of North Georgia, despite her mother's refined upbringing.
She is truly a creature of Tara, not Charleston.
And so she returns to Tara, thin, white, and sharp-tongued, terrifying Ellen with her changed, emaciated demeanor.
It's clear that escaping her environment and her own internal turmoil, her own fundamental nature, is far more difficult than she ever imagined.
Her flight merely brings her back to the inevitable confrontations with herself.
As we've seen, Margaret Mitchell meticulously constructs this world on the precipice of change. From Scarlett's vibrant, contradictory spirit,
A blend of ambition and superficiality.
to the O'Hara family's unique blend of Irish bluster and French grace, and the rigid societal expectations that govern every aspect of their life.
We've witnessed the fiery enthusiasm for war and the chilling realism that challenges it, all against the backdrop of a grand, yet soon-to-be shattered, way of life built on a precarious foundation.
So, as you reflect on this vivid snapshot of 1861 Southern society, with its rigid rules for women, its male bravado, its complex social hierarchies, and its fatal reliance on cotton and enslaved labor, consider how much of Scarlett's rebellious spirit was truly innate, and how much was a desperate product of her environment, a reaction against the very constraints that defined her.
Does this resonate, or perhaps conflict, with modern perspectives on freedom and societal roles, and the ways in which we are still shaped by the unseen forces around us?
As we leave Scarlett in her forced widowhood, just 2 months into a marriage born of spite and vanity, ask yourself this.
In a world where freedom and self-expression were so constrained, especially for women, how much of our own behavior is still dictated by external expectations, by the subtle pressures to perform a certain role?
And conversely, how much is truly our own authentic self, waiting to break free?
What unexpected insights can we gain when we look beyond the surface, as Rhett Butler did, at the true forces at play in our own lives, rather than the polite fictions we present to the world?